I raise my right hand and solemn solemnly Solomon solemnly swear. I should not swear. Anyways, though in the book of Ecclesiastes 6, uh, the chapter 6:6, and I know though he lived 1,000 years twice, it states in that scripture, um, that he had seen no good, and do not all go to one place, as I had explained in some of my videos, where the sun and the moon in reflection to the mother and the father is Saul and Lua, or Lua, known to have destroyed the dragon's orb, uh, the shadow of the sun, which can only be flesh. The spirit has no shadow, and this realm was said to be spiritual before um, Adam and Eve were conceived and childbirth, sleeping with self. The the spirit of nature is of flesh, and the shadow can only be made through flesh. So flesh is of nature, but is not nature. And the two in that dragon's orb slept with each other, and the holder of that dragon's orb went Ragnarok, the shadow that resembles the man or the god with a uh, staff and a dragon's orb. That shadow of that man deceived his own bodily flesh and slept with the spirit of nature, and the dragon's orb went. The owner of the dragon's orb, the owner of the shadow, or let's say that there is an entity in the dark world that was given light. It was a dark Iceland world, um, as a reflection from the earth into the moon, the mother Lua, or Luna, and the sun that had given it light and a shadow, and that shadow slept with the spirit, and the holder of the ark with Ragnarok, as woman and man share flesh, and the many men that nature has, or the many uh, species of birds, um, creatures in the land, or whatever sea creatures crawl up to the land, or what is shared with the sea between earthly nature in an ark. Saul and Lua, who deceived the owner of his own shadow. His own shadow went off and slept with the spirit of nature that has no shadow, but now has a shadow because flesh is of nature. So nature now has a shadow. A tree shines down as a shadow through the sun, who slept with the moon. And uh, the riches of this kind of wisdom, understanding the 1,000 years rule in Revelations 21 and 22, a new world, a new Jerusalem, a new beginning, a new Christ, a new religion, a new understanding, a founded wisdom that is uh, as God. In some of these, they call it a Passover of the Father, or many fathers, or many of them who had covenants to keep a balance from that trickery, that treachery, that shadow that is said to be yours, but there is a deception, a spiritual deception that has no shadow, and the shadow, let's say, um, in the countenance of some, uh, I can't say that nature is the devil. I can say that it says in Genesis that the devil was made as every creepy, crawly thing upon its belly because of childbirth, world conflict, or childbirth's a woe, and and then dying another woe, and then rebirth another woe. I can say that there is um, the woman said to be Lua or Luna is the spirit of nature, and it has no shadow, but it does. And this is what's so deceptive in the heart of wanting uh, wisdom to the things that have come and the covenant's purpose to keep the balance in man, uh, manipulative eyes, mind, and heart. And the first manipulation started with Eve and the apple and Adam, and consummating childbirth by sleeping with self. This is the same scenario as the shadow representing a man sleeping with the spirit, and fooling God that the man had slept with the spirit when it was not factual, and the man went Ragnarok. For the spirit of nature is with many species of the dead. And here is the golden rule of the Passover: fool to fight self, O Lord of Lords, King of Kings, Hercules. The Lord's anger against, um, the kings of uh, Judah, it says the kings of Judah is the four horsemen, and a house that is divided cannot stand. The house of Judah is the four lambs of God, Beowulf, or King David of Abibel, Beowulf, the dragon Belon, or King David, known as Zulon, which was a favor with Hercules, as Zeus favored Hercules, and there are some beliefs that he slew King David and took the seat of Hades, brother of Orion, Hades, who favored King David, and Caesar, who put a pig up his bosom in his dying days, King David, and copycatted that red seahorse, that weed of irritation, and made a San Miguel with Caesar. San Miguel with Caesar made a pig bat with a bull looking nose because of the ark uh, being the golden calf or the golden bull. The the fool in the Passover, um, when the Lord in his anger is against Judah and the house of Judah, as I explained, the four lambs of God facing the Lord who is angry, uh, and the anger is in the midst of workers with familiar spirits, wizards, sorcerers, idols, abominations, that has that beginning war of the eye of the Dead Sea, the interracial relationships, childbirth in it, dying from God, even in uh, childbirth between man and woman of the same ethnicity, or um, animals that die, the eye that was said to be a part of the nine rings, and then the Alpha Omega ring to be with the sac of the entire world's mouth. the sack of the mouth, the entire world in Jesus Christ, the belly, the ladle in the stars in the belly with the hermaphrodite Saint Matthew as well a pale rider and a white rider with Odin or Beowulf. Half of his face is made oxen or like a bull, and one horn rises, but the other horn remains upon the earth. Half of his face is injured with the archangel um, proud in spirit of the gathering of his manna and words spoken for purity. The archangel Michael, who was said to be the dragon of Odin, but not Beowulf. Belong is said to be the dragon of Beowulf, and Zulong said to be the dragon of Hercules of King David Wiglaf, and Solomon, the idol bull, Hillong, is said to be the dragon of Solomon with Sheba, the egret bird, and then the pale dragon Quillon, who gave birth with Capricornus, Artaxerxes, who took a piece of that squid penis fish rod to measure the church with the king, King David Wiglaf, and his two sons, Solomon and Saint Matthew, in that family, house of Judah, and the Lord's anger. This is, in my understanding, the law, Perseus. And in the times of Hercules, it was said, thrown into a prison colleseum of Caesar and forced to fight the great king or the great king's son, Solomon, um, king of all 12 tribes, King David Wiglaf of Abigail. And uh, Saint Matthew, who was said in 2 Samuel 12 to be dead, but yet alive. And all was afraid to even say such things, and um, spied upon in the land of Judah. But the the fool, this is one of the wisdoms that are known in uh, the mouth of greatness. The the most foolish thing to do is fight against self. And I'm forced because I know I have a child that is being raised up above where I too one day will join him, like it reads in the Bible, and uh, don't fight one another. Then the world has beaten us. The fight against one another for fall of man and that bit and that bridle, Solomon, that woman that leads the many men that she has, or the many species that have fallen dead in the earth with no real salvation, no real countenance of a man's day of birth or a beast's day of birth and day of rebirth, no real salvation or redemption, and the world found in the house of the Lord, that the Passover is uh, a worthy feast. If it is to the Lord, then say, Lord, this is what I have gathered. Do not fight one another. Even, um, well, if the commandments are the richest law in the whole world, and the light and the lamp to everlasting life, then even the Lord could be fooled. Like I explained the beginning with the dragon's rule, flesh, or the shadow, sleeping the shadow of a man in the flesh, deceiving itself and sleeping with the spirit of nature. And Ragnarok, did the man go uh, go into with holding the dragon's orb, and a great rage and creation of a world and a foundation, a realm, and God's anger with a mouth that has power to create. This is uh, in the Passover of the Lord's anger against Judah, and it's always against Judah, but it does not say why, other than in some uh, literatures outside of the Bible, the two stones of Ryujan. These are the stones of Orion, who rides Ryujan, and I've explained in some of the words that I've written to my videos, uh, the beginning and the end, the Alpha, the Omega, the one who was and is to come.